Hello and welcome to another edition of Conservative Corner. I am your host, Tom Mountain, and we have been doing this wonderful show under the auspices of the New TV Studios for several years now. We are a talk show devoted to issues and, shall we say, controversies that the liberal media won't necessarily tackle, and certainly in many cases won't even talk about at all, which is why we're here to talk about what they won't talk about. And I'm very pleased in that philosophy of really covering that which needs to be covered that others won't talk about. I'm very pleased tonight to have with us a very important guest who runs a very important organization, and his name is John Thompson. And I don't want to muffle your title, but please, if you would.
Well, the institution's title is Massachusetts Coalition for Immigration Reform.
Excellent. Thank you, John.
And I'm the co-chair.
John is the co-chair of that organization, and we're very glad to have him here. And the reason why he is here is because we have to deal with, in this state, that which has been dealt with for the past several years under the current Democratic administration, which thankfully is coming to an end, and that is the issue of illegal immigration in the United States. It's reached epidemic proportions. And initially it was on our southern border and primarily situated in the Southwest, and then it gradually moved up to the cities in the Midwest, and then all the way to here in New England. Now, one would think that in New England, in Boston, we wouldn't have this problem, but we do. And it's become a very extensive problem with illegal immigrants coming in this state. And it's reached really, as we'll talk about further, I don't know if it's epidemic proportions, but it's the problem in the state, and it's become a problem since this current governor, Maura Healey, took office 2 years ago. Prior to that, Joe Biden was in office since 2021. Charlie Baker, the then Republican governor, was in office for at least 2 years of the Biden administration. However, during Baker's tenure, very few illegals came in, or at least en masse, into the state. After he left office, then it began under this current governor, and she basically opened up the floodgates. Now we're facing financial crises in the state based on the huge amount of illegals in the state. With the new administration coming in, the Trump administration, we anticipate, correctly so I think, that the illegals will be really a target number one among the administration, and hopefully they will be repatriated to their countries which allow them in here, and they need to get out. They're illegals, they're not migrants, they're not non-documented citizens, or non-documented workers, I should say. They're illegal immigrants. They came here illegally, they need to go. And hopefully under this administration, which such luminaries as Tom Homan and others who will play an extensive role in this, then that will happen. So without further ado, I'd like to, and again, I thank John for agreeing to come with us to be on our show here to talk about this. So John, if you please, start off wherever you like. It's a big topic. We could spend 2 hours on it, but this is the fastest 30 minutes in cable TV. Okay,
well, let me start off with slightly modifying what you've just said about the pattern, the time pattern in which illegal immigration has hit everyone's radar screen more recently. Until 15 years ago, there were rather few illegal migrants in the state of Massachusetts. But then, since around the end of, but they were growing nationwide. They were coming 1 million a year into the country, and that kind of plateaued after the 2005 financial crisis, the bursting of the housing bubble. It flattened for the country as a whole, but it continued in Massachusetts. So the number, which was approximately 100,000, tripled. And it's now at over 300,000 in the state.
300,000?
Yeah, 5% of the population of the state.
That's extraordinary. I really had no idea. I heard a figure of 160,000, but you're the expert. I'm flabbergasted by that.
Well, it's 300, 335 approximately, because, again, when this administration opened the floodgates, it became harder to keep track of what was happening. I'd say what happened under the Healy administration is the preceding wave moved quietly into the underground economy. They knew they had ways of finding where the jobs were, who would hire you, and where you could get in. And they didn't want to call attention to themselves, so they kept under the radar. So the big surge, or it's not one surge, it's been going on for, what is it, almost 20 years now, tripling, whereas until the Biden administration, between, say, the crisis of 2007, 2008 until 2020, the number nationwide was flat, and there were states that were actually losing illegal migrants. So that's the first, just to modify what you said. But what happened with the Healy administration, they began to take advantage of things such as the right to shelter law. They demanded welfare payments, and they triggered an even higher level of expenditure. I can get onto that in a minute, what the levels of expenditure are. But it was going on before, but it broke into the open under Healy. So the first point I'd like to make is this is probably not a controversial statement to our audience here, but if you went to the State House, this would be a very controversial statement. Very simply, illegal immigration is bad for the state, and it's bad for its people, it's bad for its taxpayers, and it's bad for its workers. They commit lots of crime. According to a study several years ago, there are 25,000 people doing time for homicide in state prisons of illegal migrants.
Really?
So that's 20,000 people who are dead who would be alive.
That's a very high number.
Well, not only is it a high number, people try to use it, well, do immigrants commit more crime than other people? If you had enforced the law, they would not have killed those 25,000 people. So
exactly.
when tens of thousands of people are dead, when hundreds of thousands of victims of sexual assaults, robberies, when you're hitting numbers like that, every one of them unnecessary because it could have been stopped just by enforcing the law. So it's bad for that. It's bad for working people because the reason they're here is that employers want to lower wages. That's the only reason. The problem would disappear if people would stop hiring illegal, unauthorized foreign workers. I could explain to you why I use that term, but unauthorized foreign workers. If they were to stop it, the problem would disappear, but there's money in it and it goes on. And the people who most directly suffer are unskilled, low-income natives who have either their jobs are given to illegals, or they must accept lower wages or less.
John,
favorable.
can I interject for a moment? Where are the unions in all this? The AFL-CIO, the Teamsters, in dealing with the replacement of workers, especially in the construction industries, with illegals?
Okay, good question. Traditionally, unions, for the obvious reasons, would have been fighting this for 100 years, 150 years maybe. They were fighting large-scale immigration because it was used by employers to lower wages. I think that in the particular situation that they've been for the last 20 or 30 years with declining membership, they are trying to find anybody that they can organize. So they have, let's say, become much more ambiguous. They're not fighting anymore. I could just throw another one. African Americans over the last 200 years realized that their well-being is made is undermined by bringing in foreign workers, and they fought it tooth and nail until maybe the last 20 years. The Black Congressional Caucus doesn't do a thing. I think there is a good professor at Emerson College, and he talks about this a lot. There's a great book by Roy Beck of Numbers USA called Back of the Hiring Line. But he talks about the impact on black workers, excuse me, and how their situation has been made less.
Now, what are some of the impacts on, say, for example, the schools? And it's obvious that in the wealthier suburbs like Wellesley and Newton, where we're broadcasting from, we really haven't noticed that in the schools, but in other districts they have. Like, for example, from what I understand, Lynn, Holyoke, Fall River, is that the case?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest. On a state level, education is the biggest expenditure, because that's, I would have gotten onto it, you've gotten into it now, but
sure,
they cost, it's very expensive from the point of view of this is a poorly educated population, often with, excuse me, low proficiency in English and needing remedial training, and they are dumped on, usually on low-income communities. Mm-hmm. So what you just said is true. Maybe somebody, if you're in an upper-income community, you welcome it because you have gardeners, cooks, nannies, mm-hmm. whatever.
Yes.
If you're in a low-income community, they come in and they're your direct competitors. Mm-hmm. But just overall, that is the biggest single item of expenditure. I was going to go into that in a minute, but that is the biggest single thing, is that they are extremely expensive from the point of view of what they cost for education. They cost, in the state of Massachusetts, $1.6 billion per year.
That's what the taxpayers of the state have to pay.
Yeah, okay. Again, they take a lot of services out. Yep. Any other, it's not against them, but any group with their characteristics of low income and low wages, often working under the table, they take, they get a lot of benefits and services from the, especially state and local government, and they pay in little in taxes. So that is the single biggest item, which is education, $1.6 billion. When you take, that's more than half. The total amount that they cost to the taxpayers of the state of Massachusetts is $3.5 billion, and which translates into $1,200 for every tax-paying household in the state.
And what about housing? Who pays for the housing, and where are they housed?
Well, I think you might be getting to the second, the more recent ones. The first group, they make, if there's a low-income housing stock, and they might tend to drive the price up for housing, but they're not being subsidized directly for housing for most of those that have come here. The second group, those that have come, and the ones that have become very visible under Healy, they blow the ceiling out of it. But just to see how much it costs, every tax-paying household in the state pays $1,200. That's you.
$1,200 for each household
to pay for education, police, Medicaid, things of that nature. Because again, they bring their children in.
To pay for illegal immigrants in the state, it's average $1,200 per household.
Per tax-paying household, yes.
In Massachusetts, that's unbelievable.
Well, to you, that's you or me. I don't know if we're average. Most likely you're above average, but so it's a little bit more. But if you're average, $65,000, $70,000 in income, that's what you pay.
That's awful.
Well, it's your choice. The politicians who want this to go on don't think so.
Now, how does the Healy administration justify it? And I would also say Mayor Wu and the other liberal mayors of the Commonwealth. How do they justify bringing in these illegals all the way from the Texas border, presumably, bringing them in here. Now, and how are they brought in here? How do they end up here at the exact opposite corner from the southern border on Texas?
Okay, well, we're jumping a little bit, but okay, I'll answer that question. I don't know that they don't willfully do it, but there are NGOs. There are a lot of these so-called humanitarian organizations who tell people at the border, and they ask, where should I go? And they say, why don't you go to Massachusetts? They have a right to housing law.
But that's a long way. It's about 2,000 miles. They're
Yeah.
shipped here. How do they get here, and who pays for it? Does the federal government put them on planes or buses and send them here?
That is,
This is a long way to go from there.
well, many of them are. I mean, they don't do it on their own. They have, again, these humanitarian NGOs that are involved in this, and there were some highly publicized cases when Governor DeSantis said he, on his own initiative, sent them to Martha's Vineyard to get that. So that was on
Now,
state of Florida's budget. But
tell me if there's any credence to rumors, and I've heard it from many different sources, that they were being flown into Hanscom Air Force Base in the middle of the night, and dispersed throughout the cities and throughout various cities. And they were also flown into Logan Airport, again, very late at night, under the cover of darkness.
yeah,
And they were sent to the new Terminal E International Terminal. And there were dozens, if not a few hundred, even more there, that were there for a while, to the point where the terminal couldn't be opened at its scheduled date because they had so many illegals in there. Is there any validity to those rumors?
again, the question is, they would arrive at the southern border, and there's no place to accommodate them. Well, some of them, there were some that have been flown directly from overseas,
Directly into Boston.
well, into other cities as well, but not to the southern border.
Yeah.
Those are a special case where Mayorkas gave.
That's the current Secretary of Homeland Security.
Yeah, he would just give like to
under
certain,
Biden.
like to Venezuelans, Cubans. He would say, "You can come."
And they would fly directly from those countries, bypass the border, and come right into our cities like Boston and here,
yeah,
Massachusetts.
well, bypass the southern border
Unbelievable.
rather than walking across.
It's
the southern-
appalling. It really is.
Well,
We don't often hear of that. We hear, of course, of the southern border, walking across the Rio Grande and whatnot, but we don't often hear of the planes that are coming in. But I think that it's become more prevalent because when you hear of so many incidents where this is happening at airports across Massachusetts in particular, which is what we're specifically concerned with here. And what are some of the organizations, the NGOs, non-governmental organizations? Is that what that stands for?
yeah.
What are some of the organizations that the government, the federal government, the Biden administration subcontracts to facilitate these people,
Well,
these illegals?
this did not begin with the Biden administration, but there are, anything that I speak from my head might provoke. You didn't mention this one, but Catholic charities. There are some Jewish groups. Many of them are religious. There's a Lutheran group.
Yeah,
Some of them are
religious
non-sectarian.
organizations.
But what they've been doing for years is resettling refugees across the country. So
Okay.
every year the country agrees to accept a certain amount of refugees. These are people they could be in former Yugoslavia, Somalia, they could be anywhere, and the United States agrees to accept them. They're brought in, and and these organizations resettle them somewhere in the United States.
And they're paid for this by the federal government.
That's a big profit-making
It's a big profit-making venture.
I know there's been a big complaint or a lot of noise out in Springfield, Massachusetts, that the local people were complaining. Again, they're usually people that, other things being equal, you don't need them, you don't want them, they're poor.
Of course.
They're welfare dependent.
Now, how many, if you could venture a guess, or if you know for certain, how many sanctuary cities that do we have in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts? And if you could tell our viewers, what exactly is a sanctuary city?
Okay, well, there are 8 or 9.
Newton is among them, by the way,
Well, then
from
that
where
would
we're
make it 10,
broadcasting.
because that would be
from.
more recent, because
Yes.
there were 8. And then Natick became a sanctuary city, so that brought it up
Is
to
that
9.
recent?
In the last, since, let's say, since the election.
So knowing that we're changing administrations and we're having an anti-illegal immigration administration come in, Natick actually chose to become a sanctuary city.
Well, I think there are others that are considering it, but Natick did. But that's not unusual. Excuse one of the ways you can react to a new administration is you double down. You say, I will resist. I will. And the governor of California plus the governor of Illinois, Colorado have all said that they have an alliance for democracy.
Well,
and
certainly in Massachusetts, I think the rhetoric coming from the State House has been that as well.
Less so, because
Less so than
less so than the more. I think there's an ambiguity coming from this governor's office. First, she denies that this is a sanctuary state, and then she says that we're willing to cooperate in removing convicted criminals. Both of those are false. Getting back to what is a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state, there's not a hard and fast definition, and it started off by people who are doing this using it in a favorable way, and now it's not necessarily favorable. It's offering an accusation. But what it means, and that's a good point to understand exactly what it means, it does not mean that you don't deport illegal migrants. What it does mean is there are people who have been convicted of crimes, felons, murderers, rapists, people with the most...
Who are illegal.
Well, who are not, just say most of them are illegal. You could be a legal immigrant and commit the crime, you'd be in the same. But you should be on a track for deportation. And these cities say, we will not cooperate. And in deporting, it has nothing to do with the 300,000 who are working under the table and maybe an economic burden, but they're not doing anything else. These are really bad people. And across the country, there are 1.3 million, 1.4 million people that ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
And how many would you say of these real hardened criminals are in Massachusetts among the illegals?
I don't know that I could say. And also, one of the things you do in being a sanctuary is you make it very hard to find that information.
I see.
So what you should do is just in brief is sanctuary means that you refuse to cooperate with ICE. So you get somebody who's committed a crime, and like one of the things you would do, you would go to the FBI. Do you know this guy? Yep, he's wanted in 6 states for armed robbery and assault. And you should go to ICE. Do you know this guy? Yeah, well, he's committed armed robbery in Texas. As a result of that, he's been ordered deported, and we have what you call a detainer on him.
True.
But they will not do that. Boston, Cambridge, Amherst. I don't want to do.
So in the remaining time that we have, and I think I've mentioned that this is the fastest, wonderful 30 minutes in Talk TV on cable.
I'd like to have 2 minutes to give us one
Sure,
more
by
thing.
all means. We'd like to hear how do we deal with the problem moving forward here in Massachusetts of illegal immigrants?
Okay, well, that's the question. So I would say the first thing, which I haven't gotten to, but is, I got to it from the one end, which is that the reason people come here is to work unlawfully. It's against the law to work. There's supposed to be a fine for hiring illegal. The way you do it, but there's also a provision if you make a good faith effort, you're exempt. So there's a whole market in forged documents, and fake
Really?
identity papers. Well, that's how
Wow.
they all work.
Okay.
And then, but there is also a way to fix this, and that is through E-Verify. And there is a bill in the state legislature, there's a companion bill, which down in Washington, which will be passed by the Congress. I hope it'll be passed. It was passed by the House the last time. And it said you must use this system, which exists. It's E-Verify. It exists, and it is a government system whereby you can verify that the person who applies for a job is legally authorized to work in the United States.
Are you confident that the incoming Trump administration will effectively deal with this problem and solve this problem of illegal immigration in the country, in particular Massachusetts?
Well, in the country, that's the task of the administration. Let's say I see. So far now, again, this bill, which I consider the most important, E-Verify. It's been introduced in the House by Representative David DeCoste.
Oh, okay. He's a friend of mine
Okay, well,
on the Republican State Committee as well.
he's a
but go on.
Republican from Plymouth County.
Yes,
And
indeed.
then there is Senator Ryan Fatman. He has introduced it in the Senate.
Wonderful.
So but what we need we need more sponsors, and we'd like to have Democrats feel that they have an interest. So what will this I think the administration. This is a personal perception, but I'm going to write something on this. Anyone that would like to share it, get in touch with me. But my personal perception of what the governor is doing is she didn't do what the governor of California is doing, which I called defiant confrontation. She's using dissimulation to try to appear moderate, to appear into the center people, because I think once you understand what's going on, especially with sanctuary, you walk away from it.
So in other words, in Massachusetts, we don't seem to have it as bad as some of the more liberal states like California.
Well,
Like,
I would say it's more or less the same, but
it's
I mean,
still
it's
bad.
that's her way of handling it,
yes.
rather than saying, I refuse all cooperation. Well,
John Thompson, this has been a very intriguing, very informative half hour, and I thank you for coming in. This will be an ongoing problem, and I really believe under the new Trump administration, things are going to move forward, and we will inevitably solve the problem. Hopefully we will. We're going to have you back because we need to continue. It's a very important topic, and thank you for coming in.
well, thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure's all mine.
Okay.